So, hey Lisa, how's it going? Um, so I've decided to not do this assignment exactly, as the instructions say, because, well, yesterday I was trying to, my computer is full, basically, of data because it's only 120 gigs, despite being like a $1,000 MacBook laptop, which is a total scam. It's total planned obsolescence nonsense. I'm gonna sell this computer once I graduate and get something else because it's just so infuriating, stuff like that. And I deleted a bunch of stuff off my computer and was able to download the new update, or I thought I would be able to because it said it only needed 5 gigs, and I got my hard drive down to 8. I tried to download it and it just wouldn't download, and it just said your computer is full. And it's just well, no, it's not, but okay. And so I can't download a video software that's worked because I don't have the newest operating system update. And so the only video software I have is just the photo booth Mac video thing, which I'm recording this on, which you can't edit. It's you just have to record it straight through. And I was just I don't want to just record this lesson all the way through. I don't know what the point of that would be. Having done the whole TESL program now up to this point, I've worked with a bunch of students face to face. I've taught several kind of mock lessons. I've written a bunch of lesson plans. I feel good about this lesson plan that I wrote for this assignment. And I'm confident that I could teach it, or at least attempt to teach it, because I've still never been in a classroom with real students teaching a full lesson. But the thing about this assignment is it's I wouldn't be doing that here either. So what's the point of pretending? That would be basically it. Just so just with the frustration of the tech stuff, and just the fact that it's just I would just be pretending to teach and not even actually teaching, I just decided to change the assignment. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple of books that I've read this year, which have come to really inform my thinking, intellectually or otherwise, but that have really informed my thinking, as far as pedagogical stuff goes, in terms of what I want to teach about, and kind of the framework that I'd be trying to sort of come from as a teacher. So yeah, I think this will be a more meaningful kind of way of doing this assignment, because this will be kind of a sort of personal, almost video, sort of diary entry or something, and just talking about what I want to do as a teacher, and this is a teaching program. So yeah, I go to Fairhaven. I'm a Fairhaven student, so I'm kind of used to being able to tweak assignments a little bit and do self-directed kind of stuff. And it's kind of depressing to me. I don't know, I wish that Fairhaven was a program that was offered at every school. Every school. I wish there was a Fairhaven program at every school, because at Western, it's only 600 students or something that go to Fairhaven. So most people don't even choose to do it. It's because it's it's just sort of alternative. But this kind of program doesn't like exist in most places. Like I think there's like very few comparable programs. And like I know that if I had just gone to Western and not Fairhaven, I would have been much more unhappy. I probably would have ended up studying like linguistics, which is like, and you know, I have the equivalent of a linguistics minor, and it's integrated into my concentration. And like I did a super long kind of like research and like project independent study on this book of Grammatology by Jacques Derrida, which is really hard. It's kind of this crazy, like, just all about language and stuff. I also read a course in general linguistics by Saussure, which is like super comprehensive. And that's the thing about like a college education. It can be kind of funny how, you know, in these hyper specialized tracks like linguistics or economics or any of the, you know, the specializations, like everything that like I need to know about linguistics, for example, as somebody who wants to be a language teacher, and not like a linguist, I guess, is kind of contained in that book. I mean, it's an incredibly simple book. It's like, you know, less than like 200 pages, and it just like, you know, examines the mechanism of language, you know, language as an instrument, as like an object of study. And it's great. It's super great. So I feel like I was really able to engage with and study language on my own terms. That's kind of the, you know, kind of at the center of my concentration. My concentration is titled Language, Education, and Global Literacy. So I feel set up to go abroad and, you know, try to find work teaching English, and then eventually come back to the United States. Probably in like 15 years, I'll try to be gone. See ya, you know, get out of here for a bit. Well, yeah. And then I don't know, maybe when I come back, live in like Texas or like New Mexico, someplace basically on the border, so that I can, you know, work on work with refugee issues. If not directly, then ideologically. You know, I want to be there, and I want to, you know, I mean, I see it as a goal to kind of engage throughout my life, in kind of a liquidation of the southern border. Because, and not like a total liquidation. I mean, I'm not like, you know, but, you know, like an effective liquidation. And I'm not like an anti-border person. I mean, maybe in like a, you know, like there's a song I like that's called like We Don't Need Flags or Borders or something, and it's like a good song, but it's like we do have borders. It's just like a fact. So I wouldn't advocate necessarily for, you know, a liquidation of the eastern or western borders, or the northern border, I guess. I don't know if, yeah, that one's probably pretty safe, I guess. But, you know, there's going to be refugees from all over the place. I mean, we actually might need to take in refugees from India. I mean, we're definitely going to need to take in refugees from Latin America, no doubt about that. And the thing is, we have two continents over here. You know, we have this whole America describes the Western Hemisphere, you know, the New World, America, whatever. And there's like less people in this region than in China or in India. And we have all this land. So if you tell me that we can't handle the refugee crisis well, you know, if we like build a wall or whatever, like no fucking way. Because if we can't do the refugee crisis correctly and ethically and right, like, then we're doomed. The world is over. Like, society will be over. Like, if we can't be the model because we have the best circumstance, in that respect, the most land with the least amount of people, just to put it frankly, like, we got to do it right. So, yeah, so I mean, I'll be trying to advocate for a kind of pan-Americanism, an identity, like I'm excited to go to Latin America to find a job, maybe Ecuador or Peru, and it's, I think of it as like I'm not leaving home. If I think of home as America, that's my home. If that's my frame, then I haven't left home. You know what I mean? And so that's how I want to, identity is kind of fluid in this way. Like, am I a different sort of citizen from somebody who lives in, like, Mexico? I mean, yes. And there's certainly, like, huge, like, monetary differences. I'm relatively, being an American, rich compared to, that's just the power of the dollar, right? And so, you can't deny that stuff. You got to be honest about your circumstances. But circumstances are relative. Like, we also all live on one planet, and I could have been born in Mexico, and, race and IQ is a total, there's nothing true about that. Like, so it's all good. And yeah, I don't know what the hell they're going to do over in Eurasia and Africa. Like, it's not good. It's not good. It's not looking good. I mean, India is, like, on the equator. It's really hot. It's going to get really hot, and there's going to be serious droughts and water, like, shortages. And, this population, where are they going to go? I mean, if they try to go, where are they going to go? North? Like, the Himalayas? Like, there's a huge, like, the only way that any of these refugees can move is if geopolitical powers allow them to. Because they can't even just go north of their own accord because of the Himalayas. Like, they would have to get around the Himalayas in order to get into, like, the Eurasian steppe, which is probably where they should go. I mean, Russia, Russia's another place. They need to import refugees. They're more well suited to import refugees than almost any country on the planet. So they better do it, Putin, But yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's kind of the introduction, I guess. And now I'm just going to talk about a couple of books that I read this year. So a really central idea to my, kind of what I want to bring to a pedagogy is, and even if not directly, this is always going to be in the back of my mind, is the idea of the dialectic. So, like, if you think of the kind of principal dialectic as being the dialectic of subject and object, yours, and, if, you probably know what I'm talking about, but I'm just explaining for the, the lecture kind of vibe. Yeah, so subject, the dialectic of subject and object. It's easy to think of a dialectic as being kind of like opposites, but that's kind of like an oversimplification and kind of a misunderstanding. So like with subject and object, kind of the way I think of it is like, so you have, in reality, you have material phenomena and you have immaterial phenomena. This is just true. This is objectively, like, factually, observably true. Like, the physical world, material particles, I mean, they're hanging out. Our bodies are made of them. But But then, and so those are material phenomena, energy basically. But immaterial phenomena also exist. And as far as I can tell, or my own belief, is that the only immaterial phenomena that exist are subjectivities, people, basically, like consciousness, the event of experience. Because there's me in my body for sure, but then I'm also experiencing my mind, and I'm also, everything I see is like it's like a simulacrum projected in my own mind, which maybe is kind of a truism, but it's just true. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it's pretty weird. And in this way, the subject is actually the only thing that we can actually be objectively sure exists. So, like, what I mean by that is, like the Descartes quote, I think, therefore I am, or you can change that to, like, I feel, therefore I am, or I am conscious, therefore I am. That's the only thing you can actually know, for certain. The whole, like, brain in a vat thing, like, you could be a brain in a vat, and this could just all be kind of an illusion. The only thing that you're sure of is that something is happening. You are alive, and something is happening to you, Beyond that, you could be totally insane. I mean, some people actually are. They think things that are happening that aren't happening. So, But it's strange how in this way the subject, or subjectivity, becomes the actual only certain objectivity. And this kind of demonstrates how the dialectic operates. It's not like two opposites. It's more like two faces of a single coin. It's like a mutually constitutive kind of relationship. So yeah, that's kind of the dialectic. And I was thinking a lot about it just because, I was reading this book, which I pulled up already, and he talks a lot about, like, ontology, like the philosophy of essence and presence and being, and so it kind of goes into that a lot. And yeah, I've been writing just kind of finishing up a paper on some of these ideas. It's been fun, but yeah, so with this dialectic, in terms of how we can use it to understand, like as a tool to understand it, I mean, first you just have to look at it, and you can examine it, the relationship between subject and object. And it's interesting because in a Christian value framework, or a Christian, just like a framework of understanding creation, the origin of everything, basically assumes that subject exists prior to object. God is a being, an immaterial being, like a dude, like a who created everything. Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's interesting because I identify as an atheist, but if I was presented with a definition of God that I resonated with, then I would say maybe I'm not an atheist. If you say, like, God is like the energy tied with spirit or something, yeah, I believe in that. But I don't believe. What I don't believe is that subject existed prior to object. So to put it most simply, I just believe that object actually came prior to subject. Like, there was no creator. Everything's always been created. Like the material, the second law of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it's continuous. There's eternally this object, which is the fabric of reality, space-time, or whatever, and that was first and always has been. And it is only that subjectivity can arise out of the material system, sort of spontaneously, is in our case. I mean, if you take a biological perspective, an evolutionary kind of perspective, rather than a creationist perspective, that's what it seems to be. We seem to be conscious because we have brains and nervous systems, and we walk around and perceive stuff with our senses, and it's kind of weird. And it seems like, dogs and cats are like conscious, so where does it begin? It's hard to say, but it begins somewhere, and as soon as you're conscious, you're a person. You could say, if you define person that way, if you, as a subject, person as synonymous with subject, So, and it's funny, because I guess I really like this dialectic, because it's so simple, and it really gets at the important stuff. Because, the only thing that matters is subjects, or people. That's the only thing that matters. Because if you're not conscious, then you're not a person. And if you're not conscious, then nothing matters. Like, you could blow up a rock, and it might reflect poorly on you if you're like shooting a rocket at a rock. It's kind of, I don't know, maybe you're just having fun, but it can't really be called violence exactly, because you're not doing it to anybody, right? I mean, we could literally blow up the planet Pluto, and again, it would reflect poorly on us. It would be incredibly stupid, and we shouldn't do it. But it wouldn't really matter, because there's no people over there. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of something I got from this book. And then he also talks just a lot about kind of the ambiguity of language, and how it's any piece of discourse, basically anything you might say or write or read or hear, is contingent on a circumstance. And if you don't know the circumstance, you're kind of fundamentally in the dark. And you're always a little bit in the dark, is kind of the point he makes. Again, going back to kind of the Christian critique, Christian discourse assumes that there is an omnipotent consciousness. I don't think so. I don't think there ever has been or will be an omnipotent consciousness, because some knowledge will always be fundamentally obscured, because life is mysterious in some way. I don't know. But, yeah, so let's go to another one. I read this book for my critical pedagogy class last quarter, which was with Dolores Calderon at Fairhaven, and it was a great class. The readings were all super interesting, and basically the point of the class is, here's why our education system as it is like unacceptably kind of not good enough. So, as students, you guys should try to do it differently, because, the administrations, the bureaucracy of educational institutions, they're not going to be the ones to do it. In fact, they're always going to be the ones actively stifling autonomy of, actual teachers, because they're the ones pushing the money around. But this is a great book. He also talks about a dialectic in this book, and the dialectic he talks about is the dialectic of oppressor and oppressed. And the way he defines this dialectic is that a oppression occurs and creating the relationship of oppressor and oppressed when a subject treats another subject not as a subject, but as an object. So, going back to violence, if I shoot a rocket at a rock, at an object, it doesn't matter because it's an object, right? But if I shot a rocket at a person, they're a person, right? So that would be bad. It's as though I'm treating that subject as though they were an object, which is how he defines oppression. Pretty simple and elegant kind of definition, and it's not. It's a somewhat ambiguous definition, because it's like, so where is the oppression? What is it? How do I know? Am I doing it? As Americans, when we throw so much trash away, are we behaving like oppressors? Do we think maybe a little bit? People don't really want to engage with that, but in some cases it's not ambiguous though, right? So like, I don't know if you've read Narrative of the Life of a Slave by Frederick Douglass. It's really good. He talks about he was, a slave on this plantation in the South, and this slave owner, this one slave owner he passed through the plantation of for a while, owned like 300 slaves. So, that's an oppressor. Owning people, treating them like could not be a more clear treating subjects like objects example. There's nothing more clear than that. And, just absolute evil, man. Like, not good. Here's another one that I read. This one doesn't talk about dialectics really, but it's just something that I will be kind of referencing sort of ideologically. I just really like this writer. He is just so clear and just sort of like humble, but also funny. And he's like a gay Jew, which is great. He's from Israel. Interesting dude. And he's just so he's not really beholden to any particular sort of ideology. He's very, very much an honest humanist, and I just really love what he says about agriculture, because again, going back to Christian sort of doxy, that biblical thought for so long in history said that history is only 10,000 years old. God started it, and it all started with humans, at the same time as everything else, which is just not true. Like, that was just a misunderstanding. Reality is much, much older than that. It's not, does not find its point of origin. And interestingly, if you think about it, the Christian biblical kind of telling, basically history starts with agriculture. Humans emerge as an agricultural kind of being, but our history is actually stretches much further back. I mean, what we call prehistory is not prehistory. There's no such thing as prehistory. There's only history. Like, there's no, because if the stuff is happening, it's historical. Like, that's just the way it is. So, we could really maybe connect back to our prehistorical roots, understanding, the archaic, in order to, I don't know. I mean, it seems like we could use some ideas right now about how to change our relationship to the planet. So I think immediate return hunter-gatherers are a really interesting thing to study, because that's the way that many humans have lived, is, as hunter-gatherers. It's non-agricultural. And, maybe you have gardening, and it's, or maybe you have kind of a mix, lots of cultures that are, they do a little bit of agriculture and a lot of hunting and gathering, or, it's always obviously, human societies are very plastic in that way. So, yeah, what else? I am reading this book right now. I'm about halfway through it. It's very good. It's very interesting, and it's a very provocative book. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's like an art historical account of the West, beginning with Egypt is where she places the origins of the West. And yeah, it's just this very, she just looks at a bunch of important art and, tells history through it, And yeah, she actually also in this book relies on another dialectic. This dialectic being the Apollonian and Dionysian dialectic. This one's a little bit more abstract because it's kind of an artistic, poetic dialectic. It defies logic a little bit more than just the subject-object relationship. Yeah, so basically it's, comes from, these Greek gods. You have Apollo, who is, kind of like the god of sort of rationality and light. And you have Dionysus, who is kind of the god of like sensation, madness, like kind of ecstasy, bodily decomposition, and so these are placed in opposition in the book and used as kind of an aesthetic device, to explore, because you can sort of like with this dialectic you can kind of place opposites like one in each hand. Like on the one hand, like Dionysian is rational, Apollonian is rational, while the Dionysian is irrational. And on the one hand, the Apollonian represents the particular, while the Dionysian represents the general. And this kind of, correlating, stacking of variables is kind of fundamentally irrational. And the only way in which it can be reconciled is through a recognition that, as a dialectical relationship, the Apollonian and the Dionysian are mutually constitutive. Where you find one, you will find the other, if you will only look at it from a different perspective. You can think of it as, it's like Apollo, puts on a wig and then he's Dionysus or something. Two faces of one coin. It's a very strange concept, but it's cool. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I think that kind of is, good talk about the dialectic, and then, about, being a teacher. I'm excited to be a teacher. I'm really grateful for my education here at Western and at Fairhaven. I feel like I've had a ton of great teachers. Like most of them have just been pretty good. Like, so, thumbs up for WWU. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for watching, Lisa, and thank you for, I hope it's okay that I did this assignment like this. And I'm going to do the next one in a similar way. I'm going to do something similar with a friend, actually. And you will see what that is when I submit it, and it will be valuable, and I'm not going to teach a lesson, is what I'm saying. And I just need that to be alright, because this is kind of a, it's kind of a fake class, this online thing. It's kind of like fake school, It's a supplement in a time of crisis, But man, when people, You know, when people say, is this the new normal, you know, online classes, it's just like, it just makes my skin crawl. Or like online work, because that's the new normal, right? It's just like people can work remotely. It's like, it's the new normal. It's just like, makes my skin crawl. Because no, it's not the new normal. Somebody has to work the supply chains, right? Somebody has to like grow the food and move the food and package the food so that you can buy it at the grocery store while you're working remotely with what, your administrative job or your, you know, clearly your sort of coastal elite kind of job. You know what I mean? So this is not the new normal. It is supplemental. Computers are supplemental to reality. They are not reality. I'm terrified of the way in which computers can represent a kind of institutionalized alienation, you know, that will threaten to dissolve communities in kind of scary ways. So, yes, yeah. So thanks for letting me do this assignment like this. And it's been great to be in the TESL program. And it's been great to work with you, Lisa. You are a cool teacher, and I've learned some cool stuff from you about teaching. And also, it's super cool that you are in an AC/DC cover band. Like, that's just a very cool character detail. And I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a good sign about someone if they're in an AC/DC cover band. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks.